You all are not even ready for this. Just imagine being locked up, fighting for your life, and the one person you trusted the most suddenly turns against you. That is exactly what happened to YNW Melly, and it is really bad. People always say loyalty is the most important thing in the streets, but what happens when your closest friend stands in court and tells everything? That is exactly what is happening right now. A video has leaked, and it shows Bortlen giving details in court that nobody expected. He is not just answering questions, he is telling everything, as if he wants to make sure Melly has no way out. The most painful part? Melly was right there, watching it all happen. He saw the video of Bortlen speaking against him, and people say he could not hold back his emotions. He broke down in tears. Just think about that. Someone you once called your brother, someone you thought would stand by you no matter what, is now the reason you might never see freedom again. Now, the biggest question is this the end for YNW Melly? Does he still have any hope left? Or did Bortlen just destroy his chances forever? This case has already been full of shocking twists, but this might be the most heartbreaking one of all. If you thought things could not get worse for Melly, then be ready, because this changes everything. Get ready because this is almost unbelievable. Imagine YNW Melly, locked up, fighting for his life, when a video starts spreading online. And in that video, his own friend, YNW Bortlen, the person he trusted the most, the one who was always by his side, is sitting in a cold, empty room, talking to the police, and he is not just talking, he is telling everything. Melly watches as Bortlen sits there, shaking his head, rubbing his hands together. He looks nervous, like the pressure is too much for him. Then, out of nowhere, he starts speaking. And what he says? It is the kind of betrayal that hits like a punch to the stomach. Up until this moment, Bortlen has stayed quiet. He has been playing the role of a loyal friend, standing by Melly. But now, everything has changed. Melly stares at the screen in shock. The same person who once promised loyalty, the one who was supposed to have his back no matter what, is now turning against him. Bortlen leans forward, looking desperate. It is clear that he is afraid and searching for a way out. And the only way out, giving up Melly. Now, let us take a step back because to really understand how deep this betrayal goes, you have to know the history between these two. YNW Melly and YNW Bortlen were not just friends, they were like brothers. They grew up together, made music together, and most importantly, they made a promise. No matter what happened, they would never turn on each other. And for a long time, they kept that promise. When Melly was arrested, Bortlen stood by him. When people started pointing fingers, Bortlen stayed silent. But behind the scenes, the pressure was building. Because let us be honest, police do not just let someone walk away from a case like this without expecting something in return. And Bortlen? He was running out of time. Now, let us talk about this leaked video, because it did not just appear out of nowhere. Someone, either from the inside or the outside, wanted the world to see it. But more importantly, they wanted Melly to see it. Imagine sitting in a jail cell, watching a video of your closest friend giving up secrets you thought only the two of you knew. That has to be one of the most painful things a person could go through, and Bortlen is not just talking, he is giving details. He starts laying out the timeline, explaining movements, revealing messages that were sent. He is saying things that only someone on the inside could possibly know. And the way he is speaking? It is like he has rehearsed it, like he has been waiting for this moment to finally tell the truth. Then comes the moment that changes everything. The detective leans in and asks the question that could seal Melly's fate. Did YNW Melly pull the trigger? Bortlen hesitates. He shifts in his seat. He looks around the room like he is searching for a way out. And then, in a low voice barely above a whisper, he says, "I never wanted to say this, but yeah, he did it." And just like that, everything Melly has been fighting for starts to fall apart. Until now, Melly has always claimed he is innocent. His lawyers have argued that the evidence against him is weak, that the prosecution does not have a solid case. But now, with his own friend saying these words on tape, this could be the final blow. The internet goes crazy. People always had a feeling about Bortlen. Some thought he made a deal. Some thought he was working for both sides. But hearing it come straight from his mouth? That changes everything. Social media is full of memes. Tweets are everywhere. People start saying Bortlen is the biggest snitch in hip-hop since 6ix9ine. Some fans still hope the video is not real. They tell themselves maybe, just maybe, it is fake. But deep down, they know the truth. Melly sits in his cell, watching the video again and again. His hands are in fists. His jaw is tight. If he had any hope before, now it is almost gone. And the worst part? This is only the start. If Bortlen is saying all this in a video, what else is he saying in secret? That is where things get even worse. As the video plays, Melly's face changes. First, he looks shocked. Then, his face turns full of pain. This was the man he trusted with his life. But now, it feels like that trust never mattered at all. The person speaking against him was someone he once trusted. It felt like a scene from a movie where the bad guy finally shows their true face. But this was not a movie. This was real life, and everything was at risk. Bortlen sat in the courtroom. He was not just saying hints. He was saying names. He was telling details. He was talking about secret conversations that were never supposed to be shared. He was saying everything. The prosecutors were nodding and writing notes, while Melly's lawyers were struggling, trying to find a way to save him. Then, just when it seemed like things could not get worse, Bortlen said something that made the whole courtroom freeze. It was so shocking that even the judge had to stop for a moment before speaking again. Melly was watching from his jail cell. He leaned forward. His breathing was heavy. His hands were closed into fists. The room around him was silent. Everyone was waiting for what would happen next. Bortlen, sitting there calm as ever, said there was more to this case than just the murder charges. He said there was a recording. A conversation where Melly had talked about making sure there were no loose ends. Just like that, everything changed. This was no longer just words against words. This was someone who was involved, and now there was talk of recordings. If those recordings were real, if the court got them, Melly's chance of going free would be almost nothing. Now, this is where things get even more crazy. The prosecutors knew they had found something big. They asked Bortlen to explain more. They wanted to know exactly what was said in those recordings. And Bortlen? He was ready to tell everything. He talked about a conversation that happened just days after the incident. In that conversation, Melly was planning how to hide what they did, who they could trust, and the worst part, who might need to be removed to keep everything quiet. The courtroom was completely silent. The only sound was the judge moving the microphone now and then. Back in his jail cell, Melly was not just watching. He was feeling every single word like a deep cut in his back. The truth was hitting him hard. This was not just someone turning against him. This was something that could put him in prison for life. And the worst part? There was nothing he could do to stop it. Outside, the internet was going crazy. Social media was full of people arguing. Some fans still believed in Melly. They said this was all a lie and that Bortlen was only trying to save himself. Others? They were not so sure anymore. Hashtags were everywhere. Free Melly. Bortlen the rat. Melly is finished. And the memes? They were everywhere too. Screenshots of Melly's reaction turned into viral GIFs. Pictures of Bortlen compared to other famous snitches. The internet never shows mercy, and this was no different. But while the world was laughing, Melly was living the worst moment of his life. Melly's legal team was in full crisis mode. They were trying everything to fight against Bortlen's testimony. Could they say that Bortlen was lying just to save himself? Could they prove that the recordings were fake or taken in a way that changed their meaning? They looked at every idea, but nothing seemed strong enough to fix the damage. And just when they thought things could not get any worse, something even bigger happened. A new witness was coming forward. Nobody expected this. This witness was someone who knew exactly what happened that night. The moment the judge announced it, the whole courtroom changed. Everyone was shocked. Even Bortlen, who had been so calm, suddenly looked nervous. For just 1 second, his confidence broke. It was small, but everybody saw it. Melly stared at the screen, and his heart sank. A new witness meant that the prosecution had even more evidence. And if they had more evidence, his chance of winning this case was becoming smaller and smaller. Melly felt like everything was slipping away faster than he could understand. The judge called for a short break while the new witness got ready to take the stand. Inside the courtroom, people were whispering, sending messages, and talking about what was happening. Everyone wanted to know, who was this witness? What did they know? And the most important question, whose side were they on? Because here was the truth. If this witness was someone from Melly's own group, then it was over. Another person speaking against him meant another nail in the coffin. His lawyers sat close together, talking in low voices. His main lawyer quickly took out his phone and started sending messages. He was probably trying to find out who this witness was before they even walked into the courtroom, and then it happened. The bailiff walked in, looked at the judge, and gave a small nod. The judge spoke. The court will now call the next witness to the stand. Everyone became silent. The door opened, and when the witness stepped in, nobody could believe it. The courtroom went into complete chaos. Reporters outside ran to give the latest news. Social media was exploding with reactions. Inside the courtroom, people were still in shock, even though the judge had called for a break. Melly sat frozen, watching everything on the screen. His whole world was changing right in front of him. And just when it felt like things could not get any worse, the prosecution gave another shock. They had a warrant to collect some hidden evidence. And not only that, they were ready to show it in court. Everyone held their breath. Was this real? Did they really have something that could change the case forever? The defense team was in panic mode, trying to stop it. Objection, Your Honor. This evidence was not shared with us before today. Melly's lawyer argued, desperate to block it, but the prosecution was ready. Your Honor, we have reason to believe this evidence was hidden on purpose. Given how serious this case is, we request an immediate review to decide if it can be used in court. The judge, clearly not expecting this, took a deep breath. The court will review the evidence privately before making a decision. And just like that, the tension in the room hit a new level. If the judge allowed this evidence, it was over. Melly leaned forward, eyes locked on the screen. He could barely breathe. What did they have? Minutes passed. Then an hour. The courtroom was completely silent as the judge and the legal teams reviewed the evidence. The defense looked pale. The prosecution looked confident. And then, the judge returned. They adjusted their glasses, cleared their throat, and spoke the words that changed everything. This evidence is admissible in court. The room froze. Bortlen, looking strangely calm, stated that there was more to the case than just the original murder charges. He claimed that a conversation had taken place, one that had been recorded, where Melly allegedly admitted to making sure there would be no loose ends. Boom. Just like that, the entire case took a sharp turn for the worse. This was no longer just one person's word against another's. This was testimony from someone directly involved, with alleged recordings to back it up. If those recordings existed, if the court got their hands on them, Melly's chances of walking free would be almost impossible, and here is where things got even crazier. The prosecution knew they had something huge. They pushed Bortlen for more details. What exactly was said in those recordings? And Bortlen? He was more than ready to spill everything. He described a conversation that supposedly happened just days after the incident. A conversation where Melly was allegedly. The room was completely silent. Nobody said a word. The only sound was the judge moving the microphone sometimes. They were all thinking about how to hide what they had done, who they could trust, and the worst thing of all, who might need to be removed to keep everything quiet. Back in his jail cell, Melly was not just watching. He was feeling everything. Every word that came from Bortlen's mouth was like a knife to the back. This was not a small betrayal. This was the kind that could send him to prison for the rest of his life. And the worst thing was, there was nothing he could do to stop it. On the internet, everything was going crazy. Social media was full of arguments. Some people still believed Melly was innocent. They said this was all a plan against him and that Bortlen was only speaking to save himself. But others were not sure anymore. The hashtags were everywhere. Hashtag Free Melly was everywhere, but so was hashtag Bortlen the Rat and hashtag Melly is finished. And the memes were everywhere too. People took pictures of Melly's face during the trial, zoomed in, and made funny videos. They compared Bortlen to other famous snitches. The internet was being brutal, just like always. But while people were making jokes, Melly was living through the worst moment of his life. His lawyers were already trying to fix things. They needed to prove that Bortlen was lying. Maybe they could say he was only doing this for a deal. Maybe they could prove the recordings were fake. They were thinking about every possible way to fight back. But no matter how hard they tried, nothing seemed strong enough to undo the damage. Just when it felt like things could not get any worse, something even bigger happened. A new witness. And not just any witness. Someone who was actually there that night. Someone who knew exactly what had happened. Nobody expected this. And now, that person was about to take the stand. The moment the judge said a surprise witness was coming, the whole courtroom changed. People sat up straighter. The air felt heavier. Even Bortlen, who had been calm the whole time, suddenly looked nervous. His face changed for just a second, but it was enough for everyone to see. Back in his jail cell, Melly felt like his stomach had dropped. If the prosecution had another witness, that meant they had more evidence. And if they had more evidence, then his chances of winning this case were getting smaller by the second. The judge called for a short break while the witness got ready. Inside the courtroom, people started whispering, sending messages, and tweeting nonstop. Everyone was asking the same questions. Who was this witness? What did they know? And the most important question, whose side were they on? Because here was the truth. If this witness was someone from Melly's own circle, then it was over. Another person speaking against him meant another step closer to losing everything. His lawyers were already talking in low, serious voices. His lead attorney quickly pulled out his phone, typing fast, probably trying to find out who this mystery witness was before they even entered the room. Nobody saw this coming. The courtroom was a mess. The judge had called for a break, but the energy in the room was still high. Reporters ran outside, trying to get the latest news. Social media was going crazy with reactions. Melly sat completely still, watching everything happen on the screen. His whole world was changing right in front of him. If this secret evidence was real, then it was over. There would be no way out. And just when it felt like things could not get any worse, the prosecution hit even harder. They had a warrant to take this hidden evidence. And not only that, they were ready to show it in court. The whole room went silent. Was this real? Did they really have something that could change everything? Melly's lawyers jumped up, trying to stop it. Objection, Your Honor. This evidence was never shown to us before today. But the prosecution was ready. Your Honor, we believe this evidence was hidden on purpose. This case is very serious, so we ask for an immediate review. The judge took a deep breath, clearly surprised. The court will review the evidence privately before making a decision. And just like that, the tension in the room grew even stronger. If the judge allowed this evidence, then Melly's case was in big trouble. Melly leaned forward, staring at the screen. He was not even breathing. What did they have? Minutes passed. Then an hour. The courtroom stayed silent as the judge and lawyers studied the evidence. Melly's defense team looked worried. The prosecution looked confident. Finally, the judge returned. They adjusted their glasses, cleared their throat, and spoke the words that changed everything. This evidence is allowed in court. Now, the biggest question, does YNW Melly still have a way out? Is this evidence really as strong as it seems, or is there still a chance to fight back? And if this is really the end for him, what does it mean for the rap game? Share your thoughts in the comments. Say what you think. And if you want to keep up with every shocking twist and breaking update, press the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This case is not over yet. I will be watching. Will you?